Your information station. WTIM.
It's the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. You can find the streams on the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com Facebook or on YouTube on WTIM TV. Well, let's just say for a moment that you have a procedure coming up, and that's quite a long road coming ahead for you, and you might have to do a little bit of traveling depending on where you are located. Well, if you're in Christian County area, the good news is in the near future, you don't have to go very far, and I have Springfield Clinic, Dr. Pavi Gill here to talk a little bit about it. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Gill.
Thank you, Avery, for having me.
And so it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm sorry for interrupting you there. You are a doctor of internal medicine. Do I have that correct?
That's right. Internal medicine and sleep medicine. I'm board certified in both.
Okay. And when it comes to internal medicine, there's a lot of different ways to kind of address that. And I know that there's a very famous person that you kind of admire, and you would like to kind of set up the interview, if you would, with a little bit of a quote, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Absolutely. So this is in 1903, Thomas Edison, he said, the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. And I think those are very important things to live by and hopefully, strive toward. Unfortunately, we've really not arrived at that point as yet in the practice of medicine. We still rely on what I call retrospective care instead of prospective care. Retrospective care in the sense that we rely on treating disease once disease is established. And that leads to a lot of cost to the tune of trillions of dollars that we spend in treating diseases, which in my view are preventable. And the way to prevent them would be modifying the behavior through diet, exercise, weight loss, and other conditions that we can easily treat and prevent, like, for instance, modifying behaviors, reducing the incidence of alcohol consumption, eliminating smoking, and leading to healthy habits. So those are the things that I really want to focus on.
It's interesting hearing a quote from the early 1900s about the doctor of the future. How close do you feel like we are to obtaining that sort of image from what you were just talking about there?
Right. So to give you an idea, at this point, we're not close. That's really the long and the short of it.
Right.
Because again, we're spending trillions of dollars in treating diseases, and we want to be to the point that we are not doing that. We are preventing disease, and in doing that, I think we will be closer to what Edison envisioned.
You mentioned the burden of disease and how much money it can cost, not only a system, but I can imagine a person too. What are some of the ways that disease, whatever that might be, can burden a person or a larger population?
Right. Well, it does. It does have an impact not only on the individual, but on families and in societies and the larger in the workplace. I mean, the burden that they're talking about, it reduces to basically missed days of work, missed productivity. That's for the whole community. And of course, it does impact the individual and of course, the immediate family members in taking care of that person. So if we can avoid all that, we lead to a healthier society, a happier society, and a society which can move forward without all this baggage, so to speak. So
trillions of dollars. That is mind-blowing, and I don't even think I can really grasp how much money is going into, as you mentioned, reactionary care, or there was another retrospective care. Yes. Reactionary retrospective is and that's interesting. And so you'd like to take the approach of being proactive.
That's right.
And running up to it. And so one of the ways that you mentioned that was the diet. What's really important to remember when we consider our diets and the way we try to prevent disease?
That's right. So just to sort of set the stage, I think the various factors or the various tenets to focus on: diet, exercise, emotional well-being, reducing bad behavior. That means quitting smoking, reducing alcohol intake, quitting drugs, and of course, the the importance of sleep, which is always underrated, but we can hopefully talk about that because I think that's extremely important. And then of course, establishing good social relationships, which also is extremely important. But going back to diet, we hear about all these different diets, and we can talk about them. The vegan diet, the Mediterranean diet, Atkins diet, Ornish diet. Starting with the vegan diet, which I think is the everybody's interested in knowing about it. Interestingly, the term vegan was started in the 1940s, and then it gained popularity later on in the years. And it's a concept that came from India and Eastern Mediterranean regions of the world. And basically, what it is a type of vegetarianism that excludes animal products like milk, cheese, eggs, yogurt, and all that. So, what are the advantages of this diet? Well, consuming less saturated fats and cholesterol, which of course are implicated in the development of heart disease and peripheral vascular disease. So it reduces the risk of heart disease, cardiovascular disease, which means reduced risk of heart attacks, as well as reduction of the blockages in the extremities. And of course, it gives you more vitamins, it lowers your blood pressure, protects against chronic disease, reduces the incidence of cancer and diabetes. And the reductions can be as high as 80%, which is nothing to sneeze at. And then, of course, studies show that widespread adoption of vegan diets would reduce global mortality by 6 to 10%, while cutting food-related greenhouse gases by 29 to 70%. Now, that's huge.
Wow.
And then what is the downside to that? Vitamins need to be supplemented, basically, because you won't get vitamin B12, and because vitamin B12 is only present in animal products. So that would be the downside, that you probably need some supplementation of that. Then, of course, we can talk about, everybody talks about the Atkins diet.
Right. Remind me what that is.
Okay. The Atkins diet was created by Dr. Robert Atkins in the 60s. And it was primarily done to promote weight loss. And it's one of the most popular fad diets in the United States, and leads to development of low carbohydrate choices. And, it basically leads to very rapid weight loss. And we use it from a medical standpoint in patients who are undergoing surgery and they need a rapid weight loss. And it's a type of ketogenic diet, meaning a fat-based diet, basically low in carbs, high in proteins, vegetables, and healthy fats. That's basically the diet. And, you can have different programs depending upon the grams of carbohydrates per day. So, and what it does is causes significant weight loss, and the focus is on fiber-rich foods. And of course, the downside, drastic carbohydrate reduction. Now, when that happens, the important thing with carbohydrates, why do we even have to have carbohydrates? Because normally every tissue in the body can use fat from fat breakdown, for energy sources, except the brain. And I'll tell you, Avery, you can try this yourself. Don't eat any carbs all day, and by the end of the day, you'll have a hard time focusing. And we've all experienced that, when you go on a crash diet. But that's why, because the brain is one organ that doesn't use anything but carbs for nutrition and energy source. So that's that. And then, of course, there are other diets. One of them is called the Ornish diet. Dr. Dean Ornish also created this diet in the 1970s. And it's a diet and lifestyle regimen. It's huge. I mean, this guy has really promoted this and has famously gone on talk shows and TV networks, and internationally he's met with very famous people to promote his diet. And it's a low in fat diet. It's combined with stress management techniques. Also, this whole program, Ornish program, discourages caffeine intake aside from green tea. And the people who follow his program are encouraged to eat as much as they need to feel full, not excessively full, but to feel full. So the full plate program also. And it has a lot of evidence-based studies that have yielded positive results, leading to the reversal of the progression of heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure. So this is objective evidence that this kind of diet does lead to a reduction in the burden of chronic disease, thereby reducing the cost of healthcare delivery in the country. And, it also reduces early stage prostate cancer. I mean, because of course, these are all things that he has shown objectively. So it's a good program. And, the problem is it's difficult to stick to in the long run. You need constant motivation and reinforcement. And that's really what we want to focus on in our practice. By our, I mean my practice along with my nurse practitioner, Brenda. And hopefully I'm I'm hoping she'll be here in the future to talk about her aspect, because she does a great job talking to patients and delivering this care. And she's a wonderful person. I'm sorry she couldn't be here today. She's at a conference. So, but hopefully in the future, she'll be able to give her view of all this.
Yeah.
But those are I just touched on it because we can keep talking for a long time about various diets, the paleo diet, the intermittent fasting diet, and so on and so forth. But in the interest of time, I'll just touch on these few ones.
I appreciate the three major ones that I feel like I'm kind of familiar with, but haven't really seen a big breakdown. That is Dr. Pavi Gill with the Springfield Clinic. He's an internal medicine doctor here on the WTIM Morning Show. More from him after this short timeout. Right here on WTIM, your information station.
Your information station. WTIM.
Big news. Nikes Floor Covering has moved into the Marsango Plaza. Hi, this is Blake Richardson, the owner of Nikes, inviting you to stop in and see the new spacious showroom and several new products and brands to choose from. Whether you are looking for a certain style of carpet, hardwood, laminate, waterproof luxury vinyl plank, or tile, we have you covered. So stop by Nikes Floor Covering in the Marsango Plaza in Taylorville. We can't wait to see you.
It's spring. Time for a fresh start to put a spring back in your step. Taylorville Care Center wants to help you do just that. Whether you've been in the hospital or just need a little extra help to get back doing the things you used to do, Taylorville Care Center's therapy program helps you recover and return home. Private rooms for rehab to home are available to provide great medical care. Family and friends can visit to encourage your recovery. Find out more on Taylorville Care Center's great therapy program and put a spring back in your step. Call 824-9636. 824-9636. Caring for the community for over 50 years.
People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, are proud to continue their long-standing sponsorship of honoring Taylorville High School Students of the Month on WTIM's many platforms on AM, FM, and streamed online, and on WMKR Genuine Country 94.3.
My name is Carly Owens. My parents are Heather and Dwayne Owens, and I'm the Freshman Student of the Month. I'm in Purple Rain and journalism, and my interests and hobbies are driving, going out to eat, being with my friends and family, and my future plans are to become a public affairs specialist or a communications officer and go to Alabama University, and my favorite subject is geometry.
People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, salutes these great Taylorville High School students on this honor and wish them the best in their future. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
I'm Brandon Bible, your local country financial representative at 1305 West Spresser in Taylorville. Stay tuned at the end of every tornado sports broadcast on WTIM's many platforms when the WTIM announcers select the WTIM Brandon Bible Country Financial Tornado Player of the Game from that particular game. The player will be spotlighted for their great play in the game and also be given a certificate honoring their accomplishment. My wife Sam and I are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the WTIM Tornado Player of the Game this school year.
Scott Primer here from Locust Grove Church near Assumption. We're spreading the good news of Christ in person and online. Come join our family or watch our video sermon podcast by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Hi, I'm Brett with Central Cremation Center, and we proudly serve all of Central Illinois. Our affordable cremation options begin at just $7.95 with payment options available. See our plans by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station. WTIM.
It's a WTIM morning show. I'm Avery Cooper. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You'll always do better with Landmark. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. Springfield Clinic's Dr. Pavi Gill, an internal medicine doctor with, again, Springfield Clinic, is here in studio right now, and we're talking about the importance of staying healthy and also different types of diets that you can try for yourself to lose weight and take that proactive approach for your health. And so, Dr. Gill, wrapping up a little bit about what we were talking about before, I wanted to ask you how you have patients, because sometimes diets are pretty up and down. How do you continue on that journey with them when maybe they're in a little bit of a lull or a downtime in that journey that they're having?
That's a great question. It's the short answer is you meet the patient where the patient is, and it's not a drastic change that I'm advocating. I'm not saying that give up eating all meat, give up drinking all milk or cheese. No, it's not my intent. My purpose is to meet the patient where that particular patient is. And broadly, they're divided into like the pre-commitment phase, commitment phase, and then the phase of execution is how I call it. The pre-commitment phase is when you basically first talk to the patient and get to know what the patient's desires are, what the hurdles are going to be, and then you address them on an individual basis. And once you get to the commitment phase, then it's reinforcing and constantly evaluating and reevaluating the patient and making changes and adjustments. I would say, like, if you eat meat every day, I would say have a meat-free Monday or a meat-free Wednesday. That's the initial phase. But then gradually from there on, you can talk about the various ways in which you can enhance that and augment that. And so you can even go on future interviews with the patient to modify that further. So it's a gradual process, and I think it requires constant reinforcement. And that's how it works.
Well, when the patient isn't with you in meetings, are there ways that you recommend to them to keep track of everything they're doing?
Absolutely. What we are planning on doing, Brenda and I, in the future is to have a Facebook page and other media presence. I wouldn't venture to go on the various media or the different ways, because I'm not really quite up on that. Brenda is, and I'll defer to her on that. But usually it's going to be some form for combination of different media presence. And I understand there are so many out there that's it's going to become easier to approach the patient and to follow up with the patient.
What about, I know there's a lot of consumer apps that keep track of your diet, your weight, etc. Are there any that you'd like to highlight or talk about?
Sure.
For better or worse, perhaps.
Absolutely. So, the traditional way was the keeping a log of what you eat on some kind of a pencil and paper format. But now you have things like MyFitnessPal. That's a good one. And then there are so many other ones which, called Foodle, Foodle, I think, or the updated version of that. My Plate Calorie Counter, Nutrition Facts. So there's several out there that do a good job of keeping track of your calorie intake, and you can break it down into the food subgroups: carbs, fats, proteins, so on and so forth.
And from my understanding, though, most of those are free too, or come with the phone that you have. So there's something that's an upside for a lot of those.
That's right.
I want to shift gears a little bit here, Dr. Gill. One of the things you mentioned in the first segment was the importance of emotional health, and also how sleep is so important to emotional health. How so?
Well, sleep is important, I think, to everything: emotional health, physical well-being, and even your changing your behavior. Let me backtrack and say that sleep is not a passive process. Normally we used to believe that sleep is a passive process. Then when we sleep, we shut the brain off. Contrary to that, we're now finding out that during sleep, the brain is extremely active. To give you an idea, there is a very, very luckily, extremely rare disorder in patients are incapable of sleeping after a certain period of time, in their life. And these patients have a very bad outcome because they cannot sleep and they end up dying because of lack of sleep. And there's much we can do to help them. But it's a genetic disorder. Only a few families in the world are affected. But from that, we've gathered that sleep has become such an important issue. So if you don't sleep, there's definite evidence that says that your weight goes up, your risk of diabetes goes up, your risk of heart disease goes up, risk of hypertension goes up, even the risk of fatty liver goes up, and of course your risk of accidents go up, cardiac arrhythmias goes up. So it's a problem that affects every organ system in the body. Not an exaggeration to put it like that. Now, what is the main problem when I talk about a sleep disorder? There's so many of them, and without getting sidetracked here, I'd like to focus primarily on the one disorder that everybody's heard about, and that's basically sleep apnea. Now, sleep apnea means the problem with breathing when you sleep. And a lot of people have that. And there are risk factors for that. Again, one of the major risk factors is a high body mass index. If your body mass index is above 30 or 35, then your risk of sleep apnea is significant. And conversely, if you lose weight, your risk of sleep apnea goes down. So there you go. The link between diet, exercise, and sleep, in its most basic form. Now, what is sleep apnea? I give you an analogy. My analogy is that when a person has sleep apnea, they have apnea, meaning cessation of breathing temporarily, or a hypopnea, which means respirations that are noisy, and respirations that are partially obstructed during sleep. So when you have an apnea, the best way to describe that is you're sleeping and somebody comes up, and think of it as somebody cutting off your breathing by placing his or her hand on your face, on your mouth, and your nose, and and leaving it there for 20 seconds, 25 seconds before taking it away. And of course, what's going to happen? Your heart rate is going to go up, your blood pressure is going to go up, and your brain will wake up, even though you won't recognize yourself waking up and may not remember that, but your brain waves will show us when you're monitoring you that you're waking up.
Yeah.
And this happens several times an hour, like 25, 30, 35, up to 80 times an hour.
Wow.
And you can imagine how bad your sleep is going to be.
We're going to have to leave it there. That is Dr. Pavi Gill with Springfield Clinic. Thank you so much, Dr. Gill.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Hi, this is Jason Hansen. I'm a former CIA officer and best